This is Trish Kendall with Choose and Become with the Trish Kendall Speaks episode. This is week 2 or day 2 of fulfilling my commitment to record a Trish Kendall Speaks on Sundays after my Echelon ride. I want to introduce you to Safety Tom, safetytom.com. Tom Goeltz, Goeltz, is a safety consultant, and I met him during my travels these last week or so, traveling from Boston to Long Island. Now, I am asking you I am not going to give you the bottom line on top. I'm not going to give you the TLDR. I want you to hang with me as I share with you my experience of meeting Tom and our 7-minute conversation, and how that conversation has stayed with me, and I've deconstructed those 7 minutes together. And at the end, I'll summarize the 3 lessons or the 3 things that have stayed with me the most. I was traveling to Long Island for work, and I usually drive, but for this trip, I was going from Long Island to Manhattan to Houston. So I was like, oh, well, let's see if I can fly to Long Island. And I found out I could take Cape Air from Boston to Long Island. So whatever, it's a Monday, I think. I get to the airport. I didn't actually realize, and I should have thought about this, that Cape Air was, a little puddle jumper. And I was congested. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go into this little puddle jumper. But whatever, I did. So I'm walking down, you walk down to get on the plane, and Tom, who I didn't know was Tom, was behind me, and he said hi to me. And so we get on the plane, and these little puddle jumpers are basically 4 or 5 passenger seats. And it was just he and I was sitting right behind the co-pilot, and then he was diagonal to the back of me. And I'm sure I was casual because I was going to the hotel. My meeting wasn't until the next day, but I had my notebook with me because I was studying. I was thinking about my points for this particular keynote that I was delivering. And then I was also delivering a workshop. So I was thinking about all that. And Tom, he had jeans on, and I think work boots, a baseball cap, not a baseball cap, but like a baseball cap. And I remember his hair was a little bit longer. And he just had a very inviting smile. And so when we're on the plane, before the engines start going, because when the engines start going, you can't hear. So it was before the engines started going. And first, as I'm looking at my notebook, with my head down, I glanced over just to look at the window out there. And as I glanced over, Tom said, hi, are you going to Long Island for, what are you going to why are you going to Long Island? And I said, oh, for work. And he said, oh, well, what do you do? So at that point, I just shared with him, because my focus for that trip was helping these organizations inspire and think about creating enduring trust-based relationships amongst each other, and then with our customers and clients. That was my focus. So that's what I shared with him. And so he asked me, so of course the polite thing is to ask him. And I'm usually genuinely curious anyways. And so I asked him, what are you doing in Long Island? And he said, oh, well, training a team at a company as well. Now, I just want to pause for a second, because I'm so used to, when I meet other trainers, if we're going to, or keynote speakers, in this particular context, I'll say a trainer, I'm really used to meeting people that are in the same type of world or topic or content as me, whether that's leadership development or sales development or personal development, emotional intelligence, communication styles, building trust. And now when I'm focused on Choose and Become, which is my personal inspirational journey, that's not, that shocks people when I say that, from the pit to the peak, and I'll tell them why. But for the focus of trust and relationships and communication and all that stuff, there's a lot of us. There's a lot of us that do that. So I don't know. I was probably just asking him, oh, well, what do you focus on, as just a natural default question. And I don't know that I was really expecting to listen, which is awful. I know I got to walk my talk, but again, I'm like focused on preparing. So he says, oh, I'm a safety consultant and I focus on helping people. I focus on distracted driving. And, my mission is to minimize the number of people that get behind a wheel and are distracted while they're driving. And I wasn't expecting that. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people, I don't know, are there lots of people that do that? But I wasn't expecting that. And immediately it caught my interest for a couple of reasons. One, I wasn't expecting it. Two, it was something new that I hadn't really thought of. Three, Lily, who is turning 16 in March, that weekend had just completed her classroom hours for driver's ed. And of course, all of the classroom hours around driver's ed, there's lots of conversations about drinking and distracted driving and road rage and all that stuff. So Lily and I had already been talking about that stuff. So it was just like timely. I was like, oh my gosh, that's really interesting. And so I shared with him about Lily. And he had these, again, like he was so approachable. There was something about his facial expressions, and it's very hard for me to pinpoint it, but his eyes and his smile were so approachable and warm and kind. You could tell when he asked me what I was doing in Long Island and what I help clients with, that he genuinely cared about the answer, or I thought he genuinely cared about the answer. And I'm pretty intuitive. I can read people pretty well. So there was just something about, like, he really cared to engage and to connect. And I think that is a manifestation of giving love, by the way, love the action in a real way. So I probably automatically light up thinking about Lily and driving. And I was like, oh my God, distracted driving. Tell me more. And so he said that he works with organizations and companies, and any company that employs somebody who is behind a wheel during the workday. This could be sellers, this could be truck drivers, this could be manufacturing companies, retail companies with general managers that go from store to store. I'm not even thinking about all the people that are behind a wheel when they are at work. And he also focuses on schools, colleges, and I was like, wow, like how did you choose that? And he said, well, I've been a safety consultant for 30 years. That's what my degree is. And he said, and 10 years ago, my daughter, Megan, was 22, and she was killed by somebody who was driving and texting. And he shared that with me, and he said, I share that in every training with every organization. And of course I was taken aback. It was like a dagger went through my heart, and it changed my entire feeling and perspective of that interaction with him. And I said, will you tell me more about Megan? Because he had given me permission to ask that question, because he said, I share with everybody I share with everybody. And he did say that he'll be, walking in front of a room with, let's just say, truck drivers, or oftentimes like big, burly, manly men in whatever industry. And he shares and begins with his love for his daughter, Megan, and his heartache for her being traumatically ripped from his life and his wife and Megan's siblings. Megan's the middle child, an older brother and a younger sister. And she was a mom of a daughter who was 3. And so he gave me permission, and I found that out when I asked more about Megan, but he gave me permission to ask more. And so I did. I asked more. And that we're on this little propeller, and the pilot then is starting to, drive, if you will, to the runway. And I know that the engine's going to start going, and it's going to be so loud that we're not going to be able to have this conversation. And I just wanted more from him. I wanted to learn about Megan. I wanted to learn about him. I wanted to learn how he and his wife managed through it and how they managed through it. And more importantly, I wanted to know about his love. And so I asked a couple of follow-up questions. I probably got right to the heart of things. And what I have been sitting with this whole time is everybody knows that I am on a mission, and I hope to get more people more often in our moments with one another to choose to give love, the verb, the action, and to choose to receive love, the verb, the action. And he unexpectedly to me I think he lives that. At least he lived it in the moment that we spent together, from the way he asked me about what I was doing, to the way that he shared with me about Megan, to the way that he was open and received the love that I was giving by my sincere the sincerity of wanting to know Megan a little bit more. And so then the conversation did turn to like just more business stuff. So how do you get your clients? And oh my gosh, like everybody's got to hear this. And are people surprised by anything with distracted driving? And because, of course, there is the things that we know, right? But there's also the mental distracted driving. And everybody, I'm sure, knows this, where you're driving and you go from home to work or work to school, and you don't even think about where you're going because you've driven it so many times. And it's just, and you're distracted from the normalcy of the drive. There's all this stuff around distracted driving. I think what he is doing saves lives. And I know that I get to change lives when I inspire and motivate people to choose love and to choose to give and receive boundless love. I know that I can change a life, and I know that I do, and I've heard, and I know that I do. He saves lives, changes and saves lives. And he does so with such boundless love to go out there and share and try to change like one person's choice, one time that they get into the car. And if he can just get that one person in that one time in the car to be cognizant and choose to remove distractions. And it made me think about, I profess, giving and receiving love as my active practice. And when I go out, and people know this, when we talk about, on a scale of 1 to 10, how successful are you? And when I talk about my 10 is based on my definition of enduring success, which is embracing boundless love. And I see it and I know it, and I don't always choose it, but I know when I'm not. I'm aware, I reset, and I'm in the habit of making the choice again. I sat there and I've thought about this since I met him. I met him 2 weeks ago. What a hypocrite I am. Anytime I'm in a car and if I glance down at it for the GPS, if I change a song, oh heaven, don't even think about if there's a text. We each have a choice when we get behind a wheel. We get to choose if we think How about this? I get to choose. Forget about anybody else. I get to choose. Does my life matter? Does your life matter? Do my children's lives matter? Enough to be cognizant, aware, and make the active choice to give love fully when I am behind a wheel and remove the distractions. I commit to that. I commit to that for the work that Tom's doing. I commit to that for the memory of his beautiful, loving daughter who's a sibling and who is a mom. And I commit to that to my children, and I commit to that to whoever you are on the road when I don't know you. All right, I promised that I was going to summarize 3 things that have stayed with me through this conversation. And so thank you for staying and not doing the too long, didn't read. It was important to me that you experienced my experience in meeting Safety Tom. And by the way, it's safetytom.com. It's so easy to find him. Lesson one is the choice, his choice to engage in conversation with me, even though I had my notebook up, and he did not do it in an obtrusive way. He did not do it in that, might I say, annoying way where you're like, oh my gosh, if I engage in conversation with this person, I'm never going to be able to get to my work. So his choice to ask me about me sincerely, and I felt he sincerely cared to know. So that's an example of giving and receiving love. And just in the realm of creating strong trust-based relationships with people, number one makes me think about the C.S. Lewis quote, "Friendship is born at the moment you realize you too." I thought I was the only one. Because he engaged in conversation with me, we had the opportunity to uncover uncommon commonalities. That's going to lead me to my number 2. My number 2 is that he and I do not share the same life experiences. I can't fathom what he and his family went through and go through every day of their lives. I can't fathom it. What I can relate to, and I think most, if not all of us can, is the commonality of love. That we universally are meant and want to love and be loved. And most, or all of us have experienced in some way in our lives the loss of love, the absence of love. We've experienced the presence of love. We've experienced the joy and happiness that comes with giving and receiving love. And we've experienced the pain and the sorrow that comes with giving and receiving love when it goes away. Because he chose to share with me, I then shared with him about my TEDx talk. And I wasn't going to, I wouldn't have. And through our connection, we had a C.S. Lewis that C.S. Lewis moment of he couldn't fathom, and I'm sure as a dad, and as a grandfather, he can't fathom what I experienced. And he could love me and feel love for me through his love of his children and his granddaughter. So number 2 is you know what, listen, relationships spark in intimate, informal moments when we allow ourselves a moment of sharing. And I'm not saying that you have to share everything all the time. You share what's appropriate for you and for the situation. But that much of sharing can lead to perspectives changing, connections starting, a relationship that I hope that I create with him. I'm going to have him, he doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to have Safety Tom on my Choose and Become interview series. So number 2, think about C.S. Lewis. And then number 3 is that he is a living, breathing manifestation of giving love and receiving love. I talk about it all the time. I share things with people all the time. I invite people all the time to choose to give love and receive love in one moment with one person at a time. And I profess and declare that when you choose to do so, it can change that moment. It can change that situation. It could change a project. It could change a relationship. It can change a life. Tom lives that without thinking about it. I'm grateful that I met Tom on my traveling that week. And I'm grateful that Tom now is along my journey to enduring success, and that I get to be on his journey, even though he doesn't even know it, as he continues to fuel and support his enduring success and his mission and purpose to help others. Thank you for being along this journey with me. Choose and become.